And a top focus on WION right now, Iran has got a reformist president as low-profile moderate Masoud Pezeshkian has won the country's runoff presidential vote, defeating ultra-conservative Saeed Jalili by over 3 million votes. According to results released by the Interior Ministry, out of more than 30 million ballots counted, Pezeshkian has garnered over 16 million votes, while Jalili received more than 13 million, with over 61 million eligible voters in Iran. After his victory, Iran President-elect has said that he will extend hand of friendship to everyone. 69-year-old Masoud Pezeshkian is a former heart surgeon who has been pushing for change in the country without radically challenging the system run by Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Now, during his election campaign to replace the late President Ebrahim Raisi, Pezeshkian aligned himself with other moderate and reformist figures and promised an end to Iran's isolation from the world, calling for the renewal of 2015 nuclear deal. Well, in 2011, Pezeshkian registered to run for president but withdrew his candidacy. In 2021, he found himself and other prominent contestants barred from running by the authorities, allowing an easy win for Raisi back then. Pezeshkian entered politics first as Iran's deputy health minister and later as the health minister under the administration of reformist president Mohammad Khatami. In 2006, Pezeshkian was elected as a lawmaker representing Tabriz. He later served as a deputy parliament speaker. However, the next president is not expected to usher in any major policy shift in Iran's nuclear program or support for militia groups across West Asia. Since Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei calls all the shots on top state matters, however, the president can influence the tone of Iran's domestic and foreign policy. Insiders say Khamenei is keen on a loyal and compliant president who can ensure a smooth eventual succession to his successor. And for more on this, our correspondent Anas Malik is joining us on the phone line on the remarkable results of the Iranian presidential polls. Hi Anas, you were on ground in Iran when the polls had opened last week. Talk to us about your assessment of the changing mindsets amongst Iranians, with the voters now electing a reformist leader after 20 long years.
Well, this is history that Iran has just made. A first in 20 years that a reformist candidate has been not just been allowed to run in the race, but has been elected as the president-elect. 69-year-old Masoud Pezeshkian, a heart surgeon of Azerbaijani and Kurdish descent, will be Iran's 9th president, and that is quite historic because the last time when he actually entered politics was during the rule of the last ever reformist leader, that was Mohammad Khatami, between 2001 and 2005. That was the then Irani president's second term at that point of time. So it's quite historic if you look at that, because the changing mindset is a reflection that people have bought what Masoud Pezeshkian was trying to sell. They align with them, the mindset, the need for good diplomacy, the need for radical measures to go slow, the need for economic reforms, the need for ease on inflation, ease for public. I mean, all of these measures have now transpired into a Pezeshkian victory. It would be quite of an upset or a setback for the conservatives on their part, because they were not expecting this to happen to begin with. But with a 30 million plus voter turnout, about 49.8% voter turnout out of the 61 million that were eligible to vote, 16 million plus have voted for Masoud Pezeshkian, and the verdict is very clear. Masoud Pezeshkian will now be the 9th president of Iran. Resha.
Absolutely, Anas, quite remarkable indeed. Talk to us about the newly elected president, Masoud Pezeshkian's relations with Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and how will that perhaps impact the Iranian government policies going further? Because in the past few days, we've reported on how Khamenei is keen on a loyal and compliant president, but we've seen how Pezeshkian's reforms are more on the moderate side, which is something different from the hardliners in Iran.
That would be a very tightrope to walk on the part of the reformist government with the supreme leader, because inherently whatever that the reformist government would want to do, that would be met with a lot of force by the Guardian Council, by the supreme leader, in order to be shot down, because there would be a lot of skepticism in each move that the reformists would undertake. That includes with regards to internal policy or external policy as well. I think it would not be an easy ride out for the Pezeshkian government. The challenge begins now, right now. But it would be really interesting to see the cabinet composition as well. There have been talks. When WION was in Iran reporting from the ground, there was a sense of understanding that Jawad Zarif, the former Irani foreign minister, could possibly be back in the cabinet as well of Masoud Pezeshkian. Remember, Masoud Pezeshkian had served as the health minister under Mohammad Khatami from 2001 till 2005, who was the last reformist president. So going forward, the hold that the Ayatollah and the Supreme Council enjoys, in order to dispel or in order to have your impression made, that would not be an easy ride out, because that would lead a lot of conviction, a lot of negotiation on the part of government with the Guardian Council, with the Supreme Council, to be able, so that they're able to implement and they're allowed to implement their reforms agenda. Resha?
Right, and thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights on this historic verdict. And well, to discuss more, we're now being joined by Dr. Tawhid Asadi, adjunct professor at the University of Tehran. Welcome to the show, Dr. Asadi. Now, we were just discussing with our correspondent here how the reformist contestant Masoud Pezeshkian has won the Iranian polls. A reformist front nearly after 20 years. What does this win mean for Iran and its ties with the West? And what kind of policy changes can we expect? Because we know how Pezeshkian championed his election campaign on Iran's closer ties and openness towards the West.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. And then secondly, I think it was one of the most exceptional and unpredictable elections in the history of the Islamic Republic. We had an unexpected nearly 50% of turnout in the second round of election. And it's just the second time in the history of the Islamic Republic that we have a runoff in presidential elections. And it's also interesting that in the previous time that we had a runoff, in the second round of election, the participation was lower, but this time we had an increasing 10%, let's say, of actually participation in voting, which shows that people are enthusiastic about the destiny of their country. But back to the question that you raised, I think when it comes to the high politics and grand strategies of the Islamic Republic, the entire trajectory is not expected to observe a paradigmatic shift, because of the fact that I don't agree on your, let's say, report that the supreme leader is the only factor in the calculations and in the formulations of foreign or domestic policies. Iranian politics is formulated within a highly dynamic, let's say, and complex mechanism in which there are different actors and factors. The supreme leader, no doubt, no small spot of hesitation, is a key player there. But still, we have the president, we have the parliament, and we have other sources of power and influence based upon which the entire policy is formulated. And added to that is the calculations that are taking place outside the country, including the election in the United States and other factors. This is one point. And the second point, I think with the reformist candidate, Mr. Pezeshkian, coming to the office now, we are expecting a change of tone in the foreign policy of the Islamic Republic. There is going to be further tangible openness towards let's say, negotiations with the West. But let's just keep in mind the fact that Iran has never closed the door of talks with the West when it comes to the nuclear talks and when it comes to the other arenas in which the two sides can have talks. The thing is that talks were stopped due to the fact that the Western, let's say, part of the negotiations was not ready to fulfill its commitments. Let's keep in mind, Iran fulfilled all its commitments based on the JCPOA, or the nuclear deal that was signed and sealed back in 2015, but in return, it received nothing. This is something that has been tested, and there is a sort of consensus that Iran should broaden the scope of its foreign policy. That's why we have active participation of Iran in, let's say, international bodies like BRICS or Shanghai, or other bodies that sound economically interesting for Iran. And I think we will see a continuation of such a trajectory. We will have, my anticipation is that we will have further attempts to, let's say, improve the possibility of talks with the West. But it's still, regional policy, I think, tops the list of priorities for the Islamic Republic at the time being.
Right, Dr. Saadi, a lot of points made there. You speak of how, starting with, that the Supreme Leader is not the only top person to call all the shots in Iran, and there are a lot of other people with whom the decisions are made. Talk to us more about how the ties with the newly elected President Pezeshkian and Khamenei, how will that impact the future role of the policies in Iran, and also about how the Iranians are looking for change and have asserted their openness towards a shift from the policies of ultra-hardliners, because we've seen how Jalili in the past said that Iran would grow, would develop without the help of the West.
Well, for the first part of the question, we know that Dr. Pezeshkian has been a part of the Islamic Republic's governing system. He has been a part of the executive branch as the Minister for Health. He has been he has an experience of working in a top position in the parliamentary system of the Islamic Republic. And the fact that he was a candidate shows that there is a sort of practical tie between him and the entire political system. That by itself is staying, but I think all in all, when we're talking about presidential debates or the entire process before the election, there might be some controversies, but I think there is now this in-depth, profound understanding on the exigency of national unity, which was one of the key issues that Mr. Pezeshkian campaigned for. He said that I'm going to be the president for all, not for a specific group of people. And I think either from the left side of the spectrum or the right side, now this understanding that exists on the ground among the political elites, that if the challenges, particularly the economic challenges of the country, should be solved, the first and most important need for the country is this national unity. And then I think he's going to do his best to obtain this objective. This is one point. And when it comes to people, I think still we see this more than a huge amount of people voted for him. That by nature shows the tendency of the Iranian public. Certainly there is a public dissatisfaction which comes basically from the economic hardship in the country, which is again a result of many factors, most important of which is the sanctions brutally imposed by the West on the country. So with further openness, or there is a chance for, in public opinion, there is a chance for an improvement in the economic situation of the country.
Right, Dr. Saadi, thank you so much for joining us on the show with your insights on the remarkable verdict that the Iranians have given with Masoud Pezeshkian, the next president of Iran.
Thank you very much for having me.